Welcome back, everyone, and be passing quickly on to our next speaker. So we've got Ekaterina Rudneva on missing responses in autistic, non-autistic interaction. So
I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to present my study. And today I'd like to discuss videos recorded in a so-called inclusive workshop. So the full name of this organization, which I attended as a volunteer and recorded, is the Inclusive Workshop for People with Mental Peculiarities. What are these? So it is a very vague, politically correct term for mental disabilities, which is unknown to most ordinary Russians, but is used to refer to individuals with various conditions like autism and mental retardation. So, and on this slide, you can see this the picture from their official website with their slogan about getting a job and living normally. So this is the goal of this organization. The next slide shows two screenshots from the videos I recorded, the pottery and the graphic workshops. And today I'd like to discuss two dialogues involving participants diagnosed with autism. I'd like to say that, unfortunately, still many people with mental peculiarities or disabilities are locked in special care institutions in Russia or have never been diagnosed, struggling with communication and just considered strange. However, at the moment, the situation is changing and there is more awareness and various career opportunities are being created, and such workshops are one of the options. So they provide job places for individuals with various conditions where they do manual work, getting a regular pay, and getting the opportunity to communicate with other employees and volunteers. When I ask people what they know about autists, they often picture the Rain Man story and say that autists do not want to communicate or do not need to communicate. And they often say that autists are very clever. Sometimes you can hear stories about success stories about autists working in the IT industry or getting a degree, but so far these are really, really rare. Now I'd like to touch upon the main approaches to studying autistic communication. And communication involving autistic participants is described and is often described in terms of some disorders, impairments, for example, pragmatic or cognitive impairments or deficit. And I'm mainly talking about linguistic research at the moment. An alternative approach has been suggested by conversation analysis, and within this approach, analysis of video and audio recordings includes actions of all participants, unlike in the clinical linguistic approach, where they normally do some experiments and tests and analyze only what those other, in this case, autistic people say and do, and in the testing settings. So the conversation analysis suggests another approach and focuses on functions of all actions of all participants. And I'm mentioning two articles which I consider important, and I'd like to particularly focus on this dialogue. It's a dialogue from one of the articles, which analyzes a policeman trying to arrest an autist for stimming and for not giving the proper answers according to the policeman. Enriching conversation analysis with anthropological approach enables to connect communication to cultural and social constraints. And I would also like to mention the Damian Milton's double empathy approach, which enables to do research taking into account the neurodiversity perspective, and I think that is really important. However, at the moment, there is a lack of research based on naturally occurring data, and I believe this is really important to analyze not what you do in tests, but what is actually going on in real life, so naturally occurring data. And most of linguistic research studies children diagnosed with autism, and there is hardly ever any linguistic or conversation analytical research into workplace face-to-face interaction. My study aims to investigate interactional challenges of workplace involving autistic and neurotypical participants. And to do that, I'm doing the conversation analysis of videos, which means thorough step-by-step analysis of phrases and embodied actions. So what is actually happening step by step. And I back up this analysis with ethnographic methods, namely participant observation as a volunteer and interviews. In today's talk, I'd like to focus on cases of disruptions, missing responses to questions and directives. So just 2 dialogues and 2 cases. A few words about the ethical aspect. All employees sign an agreement allowing to take photos and videos of them. And besides that, each time I asked the permission of all the present people, and they were usually quite positive about being recorded. And if they asked why I did that, I answered for the purpose of science, and they liked the answer. And I use official diagnosis only in case these diagnoses have been already made public, so in some publications of the organization. Why study missing responses? A question and an answer, a request and an agreement or refusal form an adjacency pair, where a first pair part makes relevant a limited set of second pair parts. So if something follows a question, we expect it to be an answer. And if this does not happen, it is missing. So, and we can talk about the noticeable absence or official absence, and the person is considered non-talking. And I've also heard some stereotypes about autists not responding to questions or saying something which outfalls the ongoing conversation. And I believe considering such cases of missing responses also helps to fight those stereotypes. I'm using a quite complex transcription system. I'm sorry about that. But I believe it enables to demonstrate how various actions are intertwined, and particularly the embodied actions, which I think is important. This system was developed by Lorenza Mondada, and she suggests using certain particular signs to show where the embodied action started and where it ended. And I'm also marking, as usual, if something was said quieter, slower, and also overlapping utterances and the pauses, which I think is important. Now we'll discuss the first extract. And this episode has 4 main participants, 2 of which are autistic employees, Nikita and Slava. So you can see the 2 young men. They were officially diagnosed with autism, and also they participated in a video advertising some taxi company which works with people with mental peculiarities. And Nikita and Slava got to know each other in this workshop and became close friends, which I think is really great. They often enjoy their interactional patterns for tool or language games, modeling popular TV quiz shows, or playing numbers. So they are really into numbers. For example, they take turns saying dates in order, for example, dates of birth or of opening metro stations, which they are really fond of. And in this video, Nikita and Slava are in the middle of fulfilling their work project. They are assigned to draw all participants of the workshops, including employees, volunteers, and instructors. So the 2 other people you can see in this screenshot are the 2 instructors, the young women, Marina and Anne. And at the moment, they are busy using the bookbinder to make notebooks, which are one of the products of the workshop brand. So while doing this manual work, Marina and Anne are discussing work-related issues between themselves. Now let's take a look at the transcript, and after that I'll show you the video. So in order to fulfill their task of sketching all the people involved in the organization, Nikita and Slava are using photographs taken in the workshops, and Nikita sometimes asks for extra information like a person's date of birth, how long he has been involved in the workshop, or if he was present in the workplace on some day. So, and in lines 1 to 3, they are saying the middle name of the person they're drawing now, Rinatovich, Yakubov, which is the last name. And then Slava is saying in line 7 the date of birth, which he remembers, because he remembers all dates of birth of all people in the workshops. And in line 4, we can see Anne saying we don't really have tasks for today, so she's just talking to her colleague, to Marina, about job. So in fact, there are 2 pairs in the room. They're standing really close to each other, but they are discussing 2 different subjects. And then in line 11, Nikita is asking whether Yakubov works for the Inclusive Cafe Cucumbers, which is also part of the organization. So Nikita's hearable question is not followed by any answer, though he's gazing at Marina and Anne. You can see that in their screenshot. But he gets no answer, and we will consider why. So then he reframes his question, repeats it, but with a different intonation pattern, and stressing the syllable, like в огурцах работает, I guess to make it sound more question-like. However, again, he gets no answer. And Anne and Marina are discussing their subject. Here in line 16, you can see them talking about Fedya. And I think this is also interesting to mention, because Fedya is reluctant to work, so he prefers to relax, and this is the challenge that the instructors have not been prepared for, because the main ideology is that this organization provides jobs for those who otherwise would not have this opportunity. But some people in fact, do not want to work that much. And Slava and Nikita are continuing to discuss their date of birth. So Nikita just abandons his attempts to ask to get the answer. I hope this is more or less clear. And now we'll take a look at the video. So see how it's happening.
Якубов. 30 апреля 1993. Якубов. В огурцах работает.
Нет, ну ладно, на самом деле, Федор.
30.04. 30 последних дней апреля.
А недавно мне снился сон.
04 апреля последних дней 30.
Короче, у меня был сон 8.
So these are the points that we've discussed. First of all, the communication coherence is challenged by multi-activity because people are working and talking. Also, it is important to see how people are divided into pairs, which is natural to any multi-party interaction. But here, the division is also done according to the power and disability principle. I just called it this way, and I mean that the instructors are chatting together, and two neurodivergent people, the employees, are chatting between themselves. We've also mentioned relationship and friendship, which are important, and the different language games, and Nikita's intonation patterns. So he managed to change the intonation pattern, which did not actually get him the answer to his question anyways. And the embodied actions. So it's interesting to see what is done when people are speaking, and this helps us to understand the interaction better. Now let's move on to the second dialogue. We'll see Maria, the instructor, and two employees, Pavel and Vasily. This is the pottery. So they are making some products, and then those products will be sold. Maria makes efforts to get Pavel to go back to work using both linguistic and non-linguistic means. So while Pavel is actually willing to continue the conversation they've been having about keeping wild animals as pets at home. So Maria starts to do that, to get Pavel to work when the talk about animals seemed to be over. So first she suggests making another plate. So let's do another plate, and she uses the we form, so which is, I think, important. And then she looks at the clock, and Pavel follows her gaze, but apart from this, he does not react to her directives. So he wants to talk about animals, and Maria is talking about work. And just the same way Maria is ignoring Pavel's contribution about animals, even his question in line 12. So she makes another attempt to draw his attention and to get him to work. So she uses the address form and then some embodied actions demonstrating with hands. So in line 23, looking at Pavel, and it seems like Pavel is responding to her embodied actions actually more than to her words. And now she is getting Pavel to do two things: cleaning and making a new plate. As you can see, Pavel's switching to work is more step-by-step, more stretched in time. So the timing is different if compared to Maria's. He switches to work finally after finishing his utterance about animals, and first starts to touch crumbs on the table, which is questionably related to the job. While Maria's phases of talk and work are more micro and the courses of activities are more intertwined, and she talks about both work and she can do work and talk almost simultaneously, though I'd like to note that this multimodal analysis actually reveals that what might seem as simultaneous actions is actually switching from one action to another, but at the very micro level. So now let's see the video.
Давай, делаем еще тарелку, еще успеваем. Так, ладно.
Тоже
Сейчас придумаю.
только ли держать игуану или черепаху?
Черепаху, мне кажется, не трудно. У меня есть предложение. Давай сделаем уборку и отомнем еще одну тарелочку. Потому что время еще есть, а форма уже все забита и все почищено, все сделано.
Черепахи, они очень медленные. Их проще очень легко держать. Черепах.
Ну да, черепаха.
And so here are the points we've covered. The second pair parts are missed by both the autistic and non-autistic participant. So there was no responsive action to a directive, no verbal response, but in fact, the analysis shows that there were non-verbal actions responding to the directive. And also there was no reply to the autist's question. We see how multi-activity challenges the coherence of interaction and how two courses of actions, namely talk and manual work, are intertwined. We've also mentioned the differences in prioritizing. So what is important for one person may be not so relevant to the other, and this becomes more salient in neurodiverse communication. Pavel is more willing to continue the chat about keeping the iguana and the turtle at home rather than switching to work, though he actually, after he finishes his phrase, he moves on to cleaning the place and making a plate. We've seen that his switching from talk to work is more stretched in time, which could be explained by the monotropism theory. And this dialogue demonstrates the differences between autistic and non-autistic participants switching from one course of actions to another. So to conclude, we've seen that the answer can be missed by any participant for contextual reasons, so for various grounds, no matter who he's neurotypical or autistic or any other person. However, when somebody is known to have some diagnosis, some condition, he is more likely to be blamed for communication disruption. And I think this is important to keep in mind. Analysis of interaction at the micro level demonstrates various grounds for missing a response. First, coherence of talk is challenged by multi-activity. which is in the very nature of an inclusive workshop, and also by the differences in prioritizing talk or work. Another reason for coherence disruption is division into pairs according to the disability and power principle in our case. And this undermines the core principle of inclusivity. So here we have 2 employees with autism and 2 instructors who are neurotypical. Finally, interaction is influenced by the stereotypes about the conditions. For example, we can assume that repetitive actions, including questions, can be interpreted as irrelevant stimming, not requiring a second pair part. So even if instructors hear a question or some phrase, they do not expect that they have to answer it. So awareness about such interactional challenges helps to create a more effective and friendly environment. And I believe that such results of the study can be implemented when introducing inclusivity in the workplace. Thank you.
There we go. Thank you, Ekaterina. Sorry, I was slow unmuting because I was writing notes from your presentation.
That's really interesting and really shows much of what I've written about and theorized about. There's clear data and examples of it in action, and so it was really nice to see there.